Do you ever get stuck while composing ambient music? Or do you ever get the feeling that your composition is coming out lifeless and boring? Here are 7 tips that will help you overcome these problems. Tip 1. Limit yourself. When creating ambient music, it's easy to get overwhelmed by the vast array of sounds and effects available, especially if you work in a DAW. Try to limit your palette to a few carefully chosen elements. This will help you create a cohesive and focused piece. For example, instead of using every instrument and effect in my DAW, I find it much more inspiring to work with 1 or 2 hardware synths and few effects, even very simple ones. Coming up with different setups and pushing the limitations can really spark creativity. Try focusing on just a few textures like a drone or a field recording or a subtle pad, and then start building from there instead of drowning your initial spark into a sea of sounds and effects. Tip 2. Consider your sounds like a color palette. Just like a painter uses different colors to create a mood or atmosphere, you can select sounds that recall a specific feeling. Think about the emotion you want to evoke and choose sounds that align with those feelings. For example, for a calming piece, you might use soft ethereal sounds like bells and nature recordings. For a more dark or aggressive piece, you could experiment with rhythmic drones or distorted textures. Tip 3. Don't start painting until you have decided your colors. This tip is similar to the previous one, but instead of considering just the timbre of a single instrument or sound, now think about the big picture. Before you start composing your music, take a moment and try to come up with the vision of the overall atmosphere you want to create. Ask yourself, where do I want to go with this track? Where do I want to lead the listener? What do I want to communicate? This will help you to make more intentional choices and avoid clutter. For example, let's say you want to create a sense of mystery. You might start by choosing a dark, ambient pad as your foundation, and then imagine already other sounds that could fit well. You can imagine that your track will have long sustained notes to create tension and suggest a sense of suspense, with some sparse hits to surprise the listener. Of course, you can change your mind along the way, there are no strict rules, but starting like this will help you to narrow down the option and focus better. Tip 4. Try to choose colors that complement one another. Harmony is key in ambient music. Experiment with different combinations of sounds to find ones that work together seamlessly. Pay attention to the timbre, pitch and rhythm of each sound. It's important to choose sounds that don't fight with each other to occupy the same frequencies. Instead, pick ones that have their fundamentals in different parts of the frequency spectrum. You can easily achieve that by changing octaves. For example, you could use a drone with a rich low end, filter out the higher frequencies, and then add some bright piano notes on the top for a nice contrast. In the middle, you could add some simple chords that are focused in the mid-range. You can also use the tuning and the gentle dissonance to create overtones and interesting artifacts. Tip 5. Movement can be achieved via sound shaping. In ambient music, you don't need complex melodies or a lot of changes in terms of notes to keep your track evolving. Manipulating the sound itself can create a sense of movement. Try experimenting with techniques like filtering, panning, and tweaking oscillators in real time. You can use automations, but you can also do it manually to add a bit more unpredictability and humanize your composition. For example, a slowly evolving filter sweep on a drone can create a sense of rising and falling. Before we move to the last tips, I want to tell you about the sponsor of this video. You are hearing my voice through a PD200X microphone by Maono that they kindly sent me for free. It's a great mic for podcasting and gaming, and I find it way better than my older microphone. If you also think it sounds good, check out their website in the description. They have a lot of gear at affordable prices. Tip 6. Movement can be achieved via shaping and changing effects. Introducing a new effect at some point or changing the parameters over time can also add movement. You can do this on a single sound or even on the whole track. Again, you can consider using automation to gradually introduce or remove effects, or do it yourself. Usually in ambient music, changes happen very slowly and gently, but sometimes a sudden twist could also be interesting. For example, a reverb that gradually increases in intensity can create a sense of space expanding. Or slowly building up the feedback of a delay can actually create whole new sounds. Tip 7. Movement can be achieved by arranging sounds to come in and out. This might seem obvious, but layering sounds and then bringing them in and out of your composition very slowly and gently, using volume changes, can create a sense of depth and movement. You can also arrange sounds to enter and exit the foreground at different times, and maybe they don't disappear completely, but just sit in the background. For example, a subtle arpeggiator loop that gradually fades in and out can add a sense of rhythm without overpowering the other elements. That's all. I hope you found the tips useful and stay tuned for the second part.